Oh, man, it's one of those waiver wire weeks. A lot of players to pick up or at least consider picking up. And we've got 4 teams on a bye. The Falcons, the Bears, the Packers, and the Steelers are all going to enjoy their week off. And we are going to scramble to make some roster decisions. As I see on my phone, a barrage of notifications. Tyreek Hill has been dropped in this league. Tyreek Hill has been dropped in
this league. All Thomas.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, me. I haven't done it yet, but I will. Malik Neighbors dropped in this league, etc. Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. It is Tuesday, September 30th. It is almost time for the Halloween decorations, although we did get our skeleton for the yard yesterday, so we got cheated a little bit. Very excited for the month of October. All right. So does all of you listening out there, are you even aware that Bucky Irving is having an MRI I don't even know what the injury is.
Ankle.
His ankle? Okay. It was a really sneaky one, but it changes the waiver wire quite a bit.
I honestly, I wrote an entire column yesterday about injuries and waiver wire ads and drops, etc. And did not know until Adam texted me this morning, which I thought was a joke because I was sending him jokes this morning, which I thought was a joke. That is Sean Tucker, your second waiver wire priority. And to the point where, not knowing this, I struggle with players to drop, just full disclosure. When you read the column, I struggle with players to list as drops. I had Rachaad White listed as drop.
Yeah.
Just because 3 of the 4 games he's been somewhat non-existent. Had 4 catches last week, and so quickly had to change that clearly and adding Sean Tucker. So there was a lot of additions. So if anybody is keeping up timeline, I send the column. We post the column usually Monday afternoon. And with the 2 Monday night games, the Tyreek Hill injury, there were a lot of updates to that, and then updates with the Sean Tucker stuff this morning. So if you read it at some point yesterday, please go back and read it because Darren Waller's now a big priority, and Sean Tucker's now a big priority, and Mason Taylor's a priority. And so anything that happened post about 4 o'clock yesterday has been added.
And Rachaad White is about 75% rostered in CBS Sports Leagues, but he's 41% on Yahoo. He's 48% on ESPN. I'm going to look up Sleeper in a minute too. But yeah, so the Bucs running back situation is definitely one we're looking at. We've talked about Woody Marks all week. So let's get to the waiver wire priorities here. And, Jamey, you can start. Who would be your top 3 overall waiver wire priorities?
For me, Woody Marks is still 1. So that's an easy one just based on what he did and hopefully what he's going to continue to do. 2 for me would be Darius Slayton, what he was able to accomplish in the 2 games without Malik Neighbors last year. Hopefully a sign of things to come. And then Darren Waller, kudos to you, Adam. You kept saying, well, what if he does what Jonnu Smith does? Well, he looked like he's going to do what Jonnu Smith does. And Jonnu Smith averaged 13.1 PPR points per game last year for the Dolphins. And now no Tyreek Hill. So as long as Waller stays healthy, he should continue to get more work and hopefully a lot more production. So especially with a matchup on tap against the Panthers this week, those are the top 3 for me.
Woody Marks, Darius Slayton, Darren Waller. So Waller, when I said in the preseason, can he do what Jonnu Smith did? All I meant was Jonnu Smith had one of the lowest ADOTs last year. Dave pointed it out to me first, but he had so many catches that were behind the line of scrimmage. One of the most, I forget what it was. It was almost a record for catches behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. And he just got a lot of cheap fantasy points like that. I kind of felt like anyone could do that. Darren Waller didn't do that much yesterday, but he caught 2 touchdowns. And I just would caution, he really didn't play that much.
No.
He ran something, 12 routes. So we're hoping that he ran 10 routes. That it's going to continue. You have to wonder what his role is going to be as he really can't stay healthy, right? So I just want to bring that angle up to it, part of it. All right, Dave, give me your top 3, and then I really want to talk about where Sean Tucker and Rachaad White would rank in here because Rachaad White's 45% rostered on Sleeper. So he's available on most platforms. But give me your top 3, Dave.
Morning, everybody. I have the same top 3. I don't have really anything to add other than what you kind of said about Waller and how he wasn't used. He was used more like Waller than he was Jonnu Smith, but he could always be used as a short area target like Jonnu Smith was. I think there's just more to his game. Hopefully we're seeing him ramped up and he does become pretty close to a full-time player. Let me give you 2 other names. One is Brenton Strange, who's available in 53% of leagues. It's not very sexy, but he gets you some decent PPR points. He's had at least 10.5 full PPR points in each of his past 2 games. We are struggling at tight end right now. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate toward him, especially with the bye weeks hitting. And then Malik Washington, I think, is going to end up being the Dolphins receiver who sees the most targets in place of Tyreek Hill. He didn't see the most snaps in place of Tyreek Hill. That was Westbrook Akine, but I don't know if they want to use Akine the same way they use Washington. I remember seeing them use Washington on a bunch of screens and short throws in practice when I went to see them practice, and he's fast. You saw that. You've seen it obviously before this week, but certainly after Tyreek Hill went down, he got a little bit of work. I think that role might stay the same for him, but he gets a few more targets on top of it. Not a priority, but certainly a lot of people are struggling at receiver right now. And there's somebody that lost Tyreek Hill or Malik Neighbors. If you can't get your hands on a Giants wide receiver, maybe Malik Washington is somebody that you settle for with your 4th, 5th, 6th waiver claim.
So as we talk about the Bucs running backs, we have no idea what the severity of the injury is, but he is getting an MRI, right? It's, Bucky Irving. So when I look at Woody Marks, obviously I think we all see this potential for this role to grow and for him to be a potential fantasy number 2 running back or something like that. And it was a really good setup for him last week against the Titans. And
a really good setup this week against the Ravens.
Yeah, Ravens are actually giving up the most fantasy points to running backs. Then I think he has a bye after that, but whatever. Maybe look, Jackson Dart threw for 111 yards last week. He's obviously going to run the ball a lot. I don't know that Darius Slayton's going to be in your lineup most weeks. I hope so. He had 11 targets in each of the 2 games he played without Malik Neighbors last year. His role changes without Malik Neighbors. He becomes less of a vertical threat and more of an lower lower route depth, more of a reliable type of role. Darren Waller, again, he's injury prone. I don't know how much he's going to play. My question is, I'm not trying to poo-poo the other guys. My question is, would you prioritize White and Tucker over them, just because you've at least got a chance for a must-start player, even if we don't know anything later today about the severity of Bucky Irving's injury?
So again, this is where it comes down to what site you're playing on and the kind of the rules we play with here when we talk about waiver ads. So Rachaad White would probably be 1A if he's available in terms of what you're looking to add, because if he starts for 1 week, even in a matchup against Seattle where it's not going to be easy for him, I mean, this is a guy that's proven to be very involved in the passing game, just coming off a game where they got 4 receptions. This is still a receiving core that's still in flux because of no Mike Evans. And, we don't know what Chris Godwin will look like coming off of a game where he played a lot of snaps. How healthy will he be? Is he going to recover enough first game action, really first action at all since, his injury last year. So, yes, I think Rachaad White is definitely somebody. Tucker's a little bit tougher to trust because we saw him looked amazing in week 6 last year when there was no Rachaad White. But at the time, White was the starter. Bucky was not really the featured guy. They worked in tandem together, and Tucker went nuts for 136 rushing yards, 56 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. So is that what's going to happen? Is he going to be the primary, ball carrier, and they're going to use White on passing down? So it's a little bit tricky to trust. I do think in the case of Slayton, you make a very good point about what the offense looked like. It was Jackson Dart's first start. They were playing with a lead. How often do we expect him to play with a lead? And as he gets more comfortable, they're probably going to have to throw the ball a lot more. So I do think Darius Slayton's going to have a lot of big games coming. Now, to what extent, we'll find out, because still Wan'Dale Robinson will work in. Obviously, they'll use some other guys, So just going based on the 2-game sample size without Malik Neighbors is not exactly the safest way to go, because both those guys saw a huge uptick in targets in terms of Slayton and Wan'Dale in the 2 games that Neighbors missed last year. So I don't think it's a slam dunk. It's just a huge opportunity for him. And to Dave's point, just to go back to this, there are a lot of receivers this week that are stepping into potential big roles. So it's Slayton long-term. It's Malik Washington potentially long-term, because it could be Westbrook Akine. They could go and get somebody to maybe fill this role. You have both 49ers guys potentially not playing on Thursday night. So DeMarcus Robinson or Kendrick Bourne could be in huge roles this week and getting a lot of targets. Again, probably a short-term situation, and they're not great, but opportunities are there. So there's a lot of moving parts with this week's waiver wire stuff. And then you factor in the 4 teams on a bye. It's going to look a lot of I don't know for you, Dave, like the rankings look very weird to me,
Dude.
In trying to get 150 players for our flex rankings. It was like, Adam Azer, player ID number 45. I was putting random names in there just to fill spots.
Like at some point, you're going to have Kyle Juszczyk in your top 150. Week 8 is the big buy NATO. There's 6 teams on buy that.
At some point, Kyle Juszczyk is 65.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Years old. Also, Trey Benson. People are talking about it in the chat. I forgot to mention this. Trey Benson's day to day. I don't even know what's going on with that. So it's another one we're going to have to monitor here. Trey Benson has some sort of injury. So our top priorities right now are Woody Marks, Darius Slayton, and Darren Waller. However, Rachaad White would be a huge priority. And if Bucky Irving were to miss time, who do you think would lead the team in carries? Why am I even talking about Sean Tucker? Well, Jamey sort of mentioned it. Bucky Irving didn't miss any time last year, but Rachaad White did miss the one game. And in that game, the stats were Sean Tucker, 14 carries, 136 yards and a touchdown, plus 3 catches, 56 yards and a touchdown. Just 192 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches. Bucky Irving also had 14 carries, 81 yards and a touchdown and 2 catches. It was against the Saints. They were the worst run defense in football at the time, and they destroyed them 51-27. But Tucker basically was dusted off and used as a lead running back, same amount of carries as Bucky. So that's why I keep mentioning him. So if Bucky Irving were to miss any time, who's the lead running back, do you think, for Tampa Bay?
I think it'll eventually be Tucker. I just think he's the faster one. Maybe not necessarily as versatile. You can't use him in the passing game as well as you can with Rachaad White. And Rachaad White's look good, but I think Sean Tucker would be better.
I think Rachaad White will be the best fantasy running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if Bucky Irving's out because of his role in the passing game and how this game will probably unfold.
Okay, but as far as carries go?
I mean, you go back to that game last year, it was 13. It was 14 for both of them.
Yeah.
Right. So but
that wasn't Rachaad White. That was him and Bucky Irving.
Right, and that was before Bucky became Bucky. And so I think just knowing how Todd Bowles probably operates, different offense coordinator clearly, that they're going to still lean on Rachaad White. Now, Tucker may run the ball better because we know Rachaad White tends to struggle sometimes in that regard. But this is a beat-up offensive line. Like, I want the passing downs back in this situation. I do not want the rushing downs back. And what you saw from Bucky Irving in the game against Philadelphia was the passing downs work was certainly much more important. So I do think Tucker's worth picking up. We don't know how long Bucky may be out, if he's going to be out at all. Remember, he finished the game against the Eagles. And so hopefully it's just, precautionary. They want to make sure he's 100%. It doesn't seem as if he's going to miss time, it could be long-term. Again, that's saying it without knowing what the results of the MRI are. So that's just me speculating. But I would hope at this point that Rachaad White has earned enough, shown enough, deserves enough for a guy going into a contract year that he gets the work in all facets of the game. But in the case of just who we're picking up at this point, on our site, you're going to find Sean Tucker available in 97% of leagues. You're going to find Rachaad White available in 21%.
And I'll just say that, you said you want the passing downs back. But Bucky Irving has 19 catches on 19 targets this year. He does not have a single target on third down. So that is the passing down is every down for them. So that I think and Sean Tucker had 5 catches in that game last year. So, you don't have
3.
to be Bucky had 3. I thought Tucker had
3 for 57.
Oh, he had 3. I'm
Didn't
sorry.
You just say 3?
Yeah, I combined that. I added 3 plus 2 and I made 5. All right, let's talk a little fab here in just a moment. But first, let's talk a little BetMGM. Oh, playoffs. Big baseball day today, my friends. Playoffs. But you got to bring that playoff energy to your pro football bets all season long with the Pro Football Boost Pack on BetMGM. It gives you 3 ways to boost your payout on a winning bet. Just log into your BetMGM account to receive your boost pack. And then place any pro football bet and apply one of the tokens. Make sure to bet up to the minimum stake, odds, and legs specified on the token. And if your boosted bet hits, you're going to score a bigger payout. From opening kickoffs to game-winning drives, this Pro Football Boost Pack is your ticket to unforgettable moments this season. Don't wait on the sidelines. Join the action with BetMGM. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. See BetMGM.com for terms, 21 plus only. All right, we'll take a quick break and tell you if you need to go to the ATM to get those fab bucks this week.
Saturday kicks off at noon, and it's big time. First, Air Force and Navy face off in Annapolis. Then it's big time at the Rose Bowl when UCLA hosts Penn State.
All right, welcome back, folks. How much fab are we spending, Dave, on Woody Marks?
Do you need a running back? Do you want a running back? Everybody wants a running back. So be ready to spend a huge chunk of your fab. We're talking north of 60% for Woody Marks to be on your team.
Okay. So that's you're basically okay. All right. Jamey,
So
do you
it's almost
agree
the
with that?
exact same thing as what we talked about with Trey Benson last week. Here's another opportunity to get a potential RB2 rest of season. These guys don't grow on trees. It's literally, well, it is the second time in 5 weeks where we're talking about getting somebody. So maybe you can find somebody else later on this year. But here's a running back that just showed us how he's developed and improving. He literally did it over the course of the game as well. And his snap share has been going up each week. Like, it's inevitable that he's going to be the best running back in Houston rest of season.
So he said 60%. Jamey, would you agree? And then question, I guess, for both of you is, yeah, how would you, let's say we had a world.
At least 60%, Adam.
At least 60%. Let's say we had a world in which week 4, Trey Benson, and week 5, Woody Marks were on the waiver wire at the same time. You know, how do you compare the two? Who do you like better? I mean, you could just say, like, I mean, it doesn't really change. Like, who do you like better rest of season, Woody Marks or Trey Benson? But Jamey, go ahead. You can field that.
Benson by a lot. And so this is one of those tricky things from a fab perspective, because your record is probably going to determine how much you spend. If you are sub 500, you just lost flex options or need to move flex options around because of Neighbor's injury, because of Tyreek's injury, because you might have to replace Bucky Irving, you're probably spending 60%. This could easily turn back to what the Texans' run offense looks like in 2 weeks after they face Baltimore. And it's still a very bad offensive line. Nick Chubb is not hurt, so I don't think he's getting benched. So if I am not necessarily looking to pick up a running back, I'm going to let somebody else spend 60%. And it's not the wrong move to spend that much, because, again, you're trying to potentially save your roster, maybe buy you a win, and I think you could do that this week. But I don't know if I want to cripple my bank account with the idea of what could be at best a flex. Again, he just did this against the Titans. Nick Chubb still had a pretty big role. He's going to potentially beat up the Ravens, but this offense still looks very dysfunctional to me. This offensive line still is very dysfunctional. CJ Stroud is not fixed yet. And so it's different than the Benson situation, because Benson had the clear path to work. He does not have the clear path to work. I hope he does, but it's just not defined yet.
Okay. All right. How much fab for Rachaad White if he were available? And how about for Sean Tucker?
So again, it's a similar conversation, because if you need to win and you need to buy yourself a win, you spend and figure out the rest. And so, you know, you're sub 500. You don't want to, have your, like, I don't want to be, so what are we, week 1 and week 5? I don't want to be 1-4 if I lose this week. And hey, I got 80% of my fab left. But if I know that Rachaad White is going to be the guy, and I got to spend 50% of my fab to do so, and now I'm 2-3 coming out of week 5, well, I still got a chance to be competitive in my league, then I'm going to do it. So it just, I think, depends on your situation. But I will probably have Rachaad White ranked higher than Woody Marks if Bucky Irving's out.
So that's the whole thing, is the if Bucky Irving's out. And as we record this, we don't know if Bucky Irving's out. We don't know how bad it's going to be. Getting an MRI isn't a good thing, but we don't know if he's going to miss a game, a month, no games. He might play this week. And so if you're spending 50% to get one of these Bucs running backs, it could backfire. If you're 1-4 and you spend 50% of your fab and Bucky Irving shows up ready to play on Sunday, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be a lot more careful. I'd almost put in low ball bids compared to 50% of the fab for one of the Bucs guys, unless we hear on before your waivers run Tuesday night or whatever, Bucky Irving's going to miss some time. And then, yes, of course, spend what you have to spend to get Rachaad White, and a little bit less on Sean Tucker.
Okay. Yeah, right. I really hope for everyone's sake that we get some update on this on Tuesday. I suspect we will. I'm going to make my waiver claims. We have a show on CBS Sports Network today at 1 p.m., every Tuesday, 1 p.m. And I always do pretty much all of my waivers claims and fab bids at that point. And I looked at all of my leagues, and Rachaad White is rostered in every single one of my leagues, including my 10-team leagues. But if he were available, I would probably be in the 15 to 20%. And I don't really think it's that much different with Bucky Irving. I'll probably put in right now, without knowing anything, I'll probably put in $12 bids, something like that.
For whom?
For Bucky. I'm sorry for Tucker.
For Tucker?
I just think there's so much upside. There's so much potential for Tucker if Bucky misses time, but also if I lose $12 and Bucky Irving plays this week, it's not the end of the world. That's kind of the approach I'm taking. But you know what? By the time people hear this, you might have more information. So I'm going to move on.
Well, Tucker is the one that's going to sway a lot of this because, and I'm just like reading the chat, like Woody Marks, we told people last week to pick him up.
Yes.
Is the sharp leagues he's already rostered. You know, like we are talking to a wide audience clearly because of what the numbers are. But when you're talking about Sean Tucker, and this was news to us, this is going to be news to a lot of people that Bucky may miss time. And I think you guys said it best. Like there's an if to this, but that's what happens with waivers a lot. Like we're going to say, go get, like even last week, I had Mariota as the number 1 quarterback tag. We didn't know Jane Daniels was even going to be out.
And someone's saying, Tucker, really? It's clearly White next in line. Yeah, look, I'd prioritize White, but I think it's possible that they keep White in the role he has, give him some more carries, but they definitely get Sean Tucker involved. Right? I mean, we kind of feel like Sean Tucker's definitely going to be involved if Bucky's out.
Oh, they will definitely use both guys. There's no doubt about
this because I don't want to spend the whole show on a scenario that might not even play out. But Tucker's gonna have a role. We're confident in that.
He's going to have a role, but it won't be, I don't think it'll be the same type of role that Bucky's had. So I think you're right, Adam, that you'll see a little bit more of Rachaad White getting some carries along with Tucker. I also don't know how popular the Bucs running backs are going to be off the waiver wire compared to Woody Marks. Because yes, every team that is desperate for running back help will go after Woody Marks. But even the teams that have 2 good starting running backs and they just want to add depth, they're going to make a play for Woody Marks too. He's going to be way more popular than those Bucs guys. So you shouldn't have to spend nearly as much to get either Tampa Bay running back as you should Woody.
Okay. And now I
find out that Bucky's out for extended period of time.
That's the only thing that could sway that. Yes.
I think if we
find out, have to be out for a while. It's not going to be just 1 game.
All right, listen,
we need to hear about him going on.
Pledge. Here's my pledge. If we find out information on Bucky Irving today, other than, he's day-to-day or something like that, he's going on IR or something like that, if it's just me, whatever, we'll do a bonus podcast.
Yes. Good idea.
I think we owe that to everybody to help you out. So just be on the lookout for it. Real quick, let's wrap up this discussion. How much fab for Darius Slayton or Darren Waller?
Slayton, I don't think it's going to cost you very much. You're probably looking at maybe 10 to 15% if you want to, look, we're sitting here saying Bucky Irving may miss time. The receiver position has been decimated. The bye weeks are killers. The injuries are worse, and you need receiver help. And there aren't a lot of great options. Like there are some options at running back. I shouldn't say there are options at receiver, but like Slayton, if he gets the same type of targets that he got when Neighbors missed time last year, remember, same coach. So there's a chance for him to be a top 30 plus wide receiver rest of season. So I wouldn't be too cheap, but I wouldn't necessarily, break the bank for it. So to me, it's around it. The starting point is about 15%.
Yeah, I think you can get away with 15%.
And Waller?
Similar. I
bet you're going to have to spend a little more because people know who he is and they remember, 2019, 2020, and they're going to think that, he's coming off of a 2-touchdown game. So public perception is going to be sky high on him. I'd almost rather try to get Brenton Strange for 2% than have to spend 20% for Waller.
That's a good point. Okay, remember CBS Sports Network. I just mentioned it, 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, make sure you listen to the Beat the Waiver Wire episode because you could have just thrown this episode in the trash if you listened to Beat the Waiver Wire. We told you to pick up Woody Marks and Darren Waller. I'm obviously joking, but Dave gave some very good advice on that episode, which comes out on Thursdays in this feed. News and notes: Lamar Jackson has the hamstring injury. They just have not given us a timetable yet. They have Houston, then the Rams, then a bye. Brock Purdy and the 49ers may not play on Thursday. They may just not have enough people to field the team, it seems. They are playing at the Rams. They're scheduled to, but Brock Purdy is questionable. He kind of aggravated that toe injury. And Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings, they're on the injury report. Right now, it really doesn't seem like Pearsall's I don't know. Maybe I'm improving a little here, but it doesn't feel great for Ricky Pearsall.
No.
So that's why we talked about Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson. Trey Benson's day-to-day. Bucky Irving, whatever, getting an MRI. Ashton Genty changed his stance in the backfield, doing the straight-up thing again, and it worked for him, so he's going to stick with that. Dallas running back Miles Sanders has an ankle injury. I think there's some optimism that he's going to be able to play this week against the Jets, but they also might activate Jaden Blue. Tajay Spears is eligible to return to practice this week. And Braylon Allen left in the first half with, I think it was an ankle injury, lower extremity. Oh, his knee. That's right. And Braylon Allen, huge play. I feel bad. It was a rough night for him. He fumbled going into the end zone, pretty much changed the entire game, and then hurt his knee. Wide receiver, we know Neighbors is out for the year. Tyreek Hill, I don't think has officially been declared out for the year, but he has.
It's a torn ACL.
No, it's a dislocated knee.
No, they reported this morning.
Ligament damage.
Oh, it's both.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that could be
it's terrible.
Yeah.
It could be career ending. I mean,
right.
It's at minimum career changing.
Yeah. AJ Brown put out a tweet about kind of cryptically saying he wanted out. Nick Sirianni says he thinks AJ Brown wants to remain with the team. Just going to cue up the squeaky crickets. There we go. Let's get a little squeaky. He's getting the target though. So why don't you catch the ball?
Did you hear who just stepped on the crickets?
No.
Patrick Surtain.
No, that's true. Yeah, AJ Brown versus the Broncos this week. Calvin Ridley, his snaps were limited. He was dealing with an injury in week 4. Terry McLaurin.
I'm not going to be able to start Calvin Ridley?
Well, I was wondering why.
Are you doing the injury thing again?
No.
What?
The injury thing again.
Terry McLaurin trending in the right direction. Darnell Mooney, hamstring injury, but might be able to return after the bye. Calvin Austin, shoulder injury. He's got a bye this week. Cedric Tillman is going to miss several weeks with a hamstring injury. And mentioned those 49ers receivers, Pearsall and Jennings. They're going to be questionable for this Thursday game. The Saints have 2 tight ends who are kind of getting close to returning, Foster Morrow and Taysom Hill. I do wonder if that could affect Juwan Johnson, but we're going to let the good times roll for now. And a lot of offensive line stuff, a lot of defense stuff, and I'm going to skip it. Let's go to the top 3 players at
Joe Alt's pretty big.
They're all pretty big,
offensive
honestly.
line is a mess.
Yeah, Vikings are a problem. Baltimore's left tackle left with an injury. Joe Alt's got a high ankle sprain, so that's not good for the Chargers. Browns are a mess. Raiders left tackle has a high ankle sprain. The Saints, their offensive line is kind of beat up, and now their center, Cesar Ruiz, is out week to week. So there's definitely some stuff to watch. And obviously the Ravens are super beat up, and I haven't seen any injury updates on the Bucks, who had 5 defensive players leave their game last week. And they're
all getting MRIs.
Really? Yeah. I mean,
that's what the Todd Bowles said. He was like that. It was part of the laundry list of where Bucky Irving was.
All right. And they're at Seattle. So could be, I've got a good stat on Sam Darnold. And I'm going to tell you that stat right now, Jamey, because we're going to go to the top 3 at each position. So I know that the easiest way to sum up Sam Darnold is he's playing very well, but he never throws the ball. Well, against the Bucks have played so far opponents that currently rank 25th, 22nd, 26th, and 32nd in pass rate. The Bucks have played nothing but run-heavy teams. But in the week that those teams played the Bucks, they ranked 12th, 14th, 10th, and 24th in pass rate. And the team that ranked 24th was the Eagles, who are currently 32nd in pass rate. You cannot run on the Bucks. The Bucks score points. You have to throw on the Bucks. So I'm hoping that we get a season high in pass attempts for Sam Darnold. But with that said, Jamey, who are your top 3 priorities for this week at quarterback?
It's still Tua, even without Tyreek there, mostly because of the matchup against the Panthers. And I think just looking at it with what Achane will give him, with what Waddle will give him, with what now Waller will give him, he's number 1. Now, that being said, I do expect Jaden Daniels to return this week based on how much he's practicing last week. So if you want to put I have Mariota ranked ahead of Tua, but I'm not expecting Mariota to be a guarantee. So if you're just looking at it like you have, let's say, a quarterback that you have on your roster and you want to maybe pick somebody up for more upside, Mariota would be the one I think to get. Jackson Dart would be 3rd. I have Sam Darnold 4th, but those all 4 are very closely ranked. And if you're just looking at it, most upside for me is still Mariota, because he's been 4 games now with the Commanders as a featured quarterback or starter. and in all 4, he's been 20 fantasy points or more.
Oh man, I think I gotta disagree with you on the Tua thing. I don't want anything to do with him. First of all, Carolina, for what it's worth, 6th best against quarterbacks right now. Trevor Lawrence bad,
It's
Kyler
so
Murray.
fluky.
I mean, I was watching some Patriots tape this morning, and I would probably agree with you because the Panthers played horrible defense from what I saw. But the numbers are the numbers. But also, I think they threw for 39 yards after Tyreek Hill left yesterday. I know they had the lead, but I don't know. I can't trust Tua without Tyreek Hill.
You can make the case that the other quarterback in that game is the better fantasy start based on the matchup.
Well, I can't trust him, though.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can trust either of these guys.
It's so sad because Bryce Young has Miami and then Dallas and then the Jets. But last week we were saying Bryce Young has New England, Miami, Dallas, and the Jets, and he put up 12.3 points against the Patriots. But I mean, the Dolphins and the Cowboys are statistically the 2 best matchups for quarterbacks, and that's Bryce Young's up.
I wonder if he struggles, does he get benched again?
Yeah, Dalton did come in at the end. It was a blowout. All right, so Jamey's going Tua, and then Mariota, if he plays, would actually be ahead of Tua. He's at the Chargers. Jackson Dart at New Orleans. Sam Darnold is 4th against the Bucks. Dave, what do you think about Tua this week?
I think he's a high-end number 2 quarterback. I think it's a little bit tougher to trust him because Tyreek Hill isn't there. And for what it's worth, the Panthers defense, at least in the secondary, have played better until last week. And Drake May had a huge game in part because he ran for a touchdown. And I don't know if Tua is going to end up doing that. This could be a game where the Dolphins don't need a lot from Tua. So I think if you look at him as a number 2 quarterback, and I agree, if Mariota ends up starting, he's definitely the guy that I would rather go with ahead of Tua. I think you can make the case for Jackson Dart because he will run. Saints have allowed at least 20 fantasy points to each of the 4 quarterbacks they've seen this year. So maybe it's a little bit of a higher floor for Dart compared to Tua, but I think that they're close. And so if you're a little bit worried about, you just need a quarterback for this week and maybe somebody that's got a little bit of upside rest of season, I think you can make the case for Dart over Tua because Tua doesn't have Tyreek anymore.
The only problem with that is the next 3 games for the Giants are absolutely miserable, with 2 against Philadelphia and 1 against Denver. Like,
what would you have said about the matchup against the Chargers? Not that he had a great game against the Chargers, but it was okay. And by the way, to be fair, Dart lost neighbors. So it's
all 3 of these quarterbacks, Tua, Mariota, and Dart, are currently missing their number 1 wide receivers.
Well, quote unquote number 1. Debo might be the Commanders' number 1. Yeah, the way I look at it is, who's going to get me to 20 points? Mariota has proven he can get north of that.
For sure.
Dart is a mystery bag, but he gets a great matchup. Tua's now a mystery bag, gets a great matchup. And to me, still has the best weapons available right now, even without Tyreek there. So that's why I still trust him in his matchup more so than the other guys.
You know who has better weapons?
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true actually, but yeah, Darnold's got to be a close 4th at least.
Listen, Darnold's in a great spot. He really is. It's just a matter of, will he? You said it. Will he throw enough? He's averaging 25 pass attempts a game. Like, that does not feel great. Yeah. And yes, it's tough to run on Tampa, but being as banged up as they are defensively, will that still hold up?
It's true. That's a good point.
They're also banged up in the secondary, though. So this could be Seattle gets away with what they want, but volume is going to come back to bite Darnold. So I agree. I'd like the other quarterbacks better for this week.
You know what? You guys are entitled to your wrong opinion. Let's go to the running backs.
No, it's funny because I know Tyreek injury changed it, but you were on board with when we did our waiver wire express yesterday. You were like, "Oh, you convinced me that Dart and Tua and Mariota are all better than Dart."
No, I don't think Dart. There's no way I'd start Dart.
Well, I'm just saying that your sentencing, your phrasing, your words were, you convinced me on those guys over Darnold.
I think I only said Tua and Mariota.
All right, we'll go back and watch.
Yeah, you've been misquoting me quite a bit lately. So, all right, Dave, top 3 running backs.
Woody, then a Bucks running back, and then it's a close call for me between Kendre Miller and Tyjae Spears. I'm going to think long-term and say that Kendre Miller is the 3rd best running back that you can get off waivers, but it's a long-term play. I do like that his touches have gone up each week so far this season. Last week, 11 touches, finally a double-digit PPR points. It seems like we're getting to the point now where he's going to take work away from Kamara. And what if Kamara gets traded? What if Kamara gets rested for the last few weeks of the season? Again, this is not somebody that you can start and feel good about in week number 5, unless you're desperate at running back. But I think Kendre Miller's role is only going to continue to increase and get better. And that's a running back that I'd want to have on my bench. It's not going to be a huge priority. I shouldn't have to spend more than 5% of my FAB. Should be able to get him with my second waiver run. But I think there's a spot on fantasy benches for Kendre Miller. He's available in 70% of leagues.
I think it's time. This is totally my fault. There's 35 minutes into the episode. It's probably time to talk about the running back who scored over 30 fantasy points last week, is 22% rostered, I believe, is going into a bye.
Top 3.
Kenneth Gainwell.
Without a doubt.
But would you have him third, Jamey?
So if we find out that there's nothing wrong with Bucky and he's fine, he's second. And it's a close second to Woody Marks, because we don't know how long Jaylen Warren's going to be out. Like, Jaylen Warren hopefully is back week 6 and back to being his role. If Warren's injury is long-term, you can make a case that Gainwell is better than Woody Marks based on what we just saw. Like,
No question.
That was amazing.
No question.
So I'm picking up Kenneth Gainwell right after Woody Marks. If I find out that the Buck situation is fine, I'm picking up Kenneth Gainwell. If I don't need a running back for week 5, which is hopefully a great situation, like Gainwell week 6 plus could be league winner. So he is easily in the top 3 of the running back position.
What if we learn today that Jaylen Warren's going to be fine in back week 6? I'm not sure if Mike Tomlin talks today. He usually talks on Tuesdays.
Yeah. Well, look, what we know is that he was, quote unquote, expected to play and then didn't play. So I think people are treating it as a short-term injury. However, what we also know is that Jaylen Warren has had a career high in carries in week 3 and came out of it with a knee injury. So he's not a guy who I feel like is going to get a full workload. All right. So Gainwell is someone. I said I'm going to do my waivers before the 1 p.m. show. I don't think it's going to be so difficult. It's going to take me 2 hours. So many guys. Dave, top 3 wide receivers. Dave?
The Giants guys are first. If Wandale is out there, I'd take him ahead of Darius Slayton. I think earlier I said Malik Washington was somebody that you can go and grab. I think I might take Io Manor. Again, thinking rest of season. And we've been talking about him a lot, and last week was a major disappointment. But I think I'd rather have Io Manor than Malik Washington, but those are going to be my top 3/4 receivers.
What about Romeo Doubs coming off a 3 touchdown?
So listen, and the reason why I didn't include Doubs or Gainwell is because they're not playing this week. Okay. And so Gainwell, if you need him this week, you're in big trouble. And then we don't know what his role is going to be. But yes, Gainwell should be ahead of Kendre Miller, especially if you're picking up Miller for long-term. Gainwell is the much better ad for long-term. So that's my bad. And Doubs is the exact same thing. So Doubs should probably be behind the Giants guys.
Someone in the chat is asking, pick up Tucker or White. And I don't know if we explicitly
Sean Tucker or Rachaad White.
Yeah. No, I know who he's talking about, but we prefer Rachaad White, right? In case I didn't say that.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably the way to go.
Jamey, who are the top 3 tight ends?
Darren Waller would be 1. Brenton Strange would be 2, and Mason Taylor would be 3. Now, you can make a case for Tommy Tremble if you wanted. Tremble was actually second for me prior to Monday night just because of what he just did, what the matchup is against Miami. And it wasn't just Tremble. They had another tight end that also worked in as well. So this receiving core needs Jalen Coker back right now, and hopefully he returns. So just keep that in mind. He's eligible to come off IR for this week. We have not heard anything except for 2 weeks ago when Dave Canales said week to week. So we don't know if that meant he's going to be ready for when he's eligible to return or not. But just looking at Jatavion Sanders out once again, there could be a big opportunity for Tremble, who had 8 targets and 5 catches in last week's game against the Patriots, and the Dolphins couldn't stop Mason Taylor, who had 7 targets for 5 catches. But I think just looking long-term as well as short-term, Mason Taylor gets the Cowboys this week. He would be third behind Waller coming off the big game. Strange now back-to-back games with 10 PPR points or more. I don't know how huge of an upside play Strange is. He's more of a floor play at this point, just based on what we've seen.
Agreed.
So Waller to me is the easy one to go get because there could be immense potential for him if he stays healthy, and now with Tyreek Hill out.
Okay, and Mason Taylor with 13 targets in his last 2 games. And actually, it's a little bit of a trend right now. These rookie tight ends are starting to carve out bigger roles. Gadsden saw an increase in his snap share. Elijah Arroyo has seen an increase, and he had his best game. It wasn't that good. Mason Taylor, again, 13 targets in his last 2 games. That's really huge for a team that is desperate for a second receiving option.
I think also just keep in mind, which I think is a positive for Taylor, it came with 2 different quarterbacks. So it's not necessarily a quarterback thing favoring one of these guys or a quarterback thing favoring him. It's the offense now allowing him to operate a little bit more. So it was cool to see, especially, going back to Miami where his dad played.
Sure. One more thing, because I forgot this name again, somebody who's on bye at tight end. Is there room to stash Colston Loveland on the hope that he gets a post-bye bump?
I wouldn't make that a big priority because he's coming off an injury.
You have to.
Yeah, but you got to have a pretty deep bench to be carrying a player like this who's done next to nothing and coming off an injury. So sure, if you can afford to carry him, I don't know. If I'm picking up a young tight end that's available in free agency right now, it's Mason Taylor without question.
I agree, but it's the exact scenario you laid out, and there's probably 10% of the audience that has something like this. But we were drafting Colston Loveland. We weren't drafting Mason Taylor. We weren't drafting any of these tight ends that we're talking about. And if Loveland ends up getting more work in the Bears offense has really proven, despite what we saw against Las Vegas, they can move the ball downfield. That's somebody that I'd want to have on my bench. You don't even have to do it today. You can probably wait till Friday or Saturday to go get Loveland and stash him on your bench.
And just to go back to the running backs, if we find out that there's something significant for Trey Benson, DeMarcado now becomes probably.
Is it right?
I don't know. I don't feel like. Is there another running back they have that could actually?
Michael Carter's the other guy. One of them's going to play just on passing downs, and the other one's going to play rushing downs. That's how they've operated since Drew Petzing's been there.
I'm kind of leaning Kyler as start of the week.
No, it will be. It will be Carter. I think this is actually a good point because Carter last year, as I recall, had a huge game in Connor's. Now he had 17 carries in week 18. He had 13 carries the week before that. So I don't think they moved DeMarcado. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. It's possible that DeMarcado stays in his horrible for fantasy role, and Michael Carter would get the boost there. By the way, hold on. Colston Loveland, to your point, they wanted to get the tight ends more involved. He ran 5 routes before getting injured. He had 3 targets on his 5 routes, and he was maybe in line for a big game.
You'll hear his name again on Thursday. By the way, the running backs we're talking about now, like DeMarcado and Michael Carter, these are week 16, 17 guys, and it's week 5.
I know.
It's what a nightmare this season.
I almost think, though, in the case of somebody that's on a bye coming off an injury, you could just wait till next week and get him when nobody's paying attention.
Yeah, probably. But those of you who are listening now, it is possible we're getting an increased role from Colston Loveland.
Hopefully.
They tried to do that in week 4. All right, Jamey. Now it's time for coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. So, Jamey, give me a DST to stream this week.
Well, there's a team that's playing an offense that didn't score a point last week, and the quarterback said that their team is ass. And it's pretty easy to go get the Cardinals right now, and you could start them against the Titans. I think they'll be better. Obviously, the Cardinals have been a little bit struggling, when they've played some good matchups, but this is as good a matchup as you'll find. I'm going to trust the Cardinals. They're my number 1 DST for this week.
Every DST that's faced the Titans has been good. It's the
13
Cardinals.
or more fantasy points in standard scoring.
25% rostered too, widely available. The Rams, the Chiefs, the Browns, and the Giants are also on Jamey's DST list. The kickers that he likes: Chad Ryland, Joshua Carty, and Jason Myers. And we're going to be right back to talk about shallow leagues and deep leagues and Monday Night Football and more waiver wire guys and this and that. Justice Hill, should be picking him up. We'll be right back on FFT.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
Okay, welcome back. So it's been a busy show so far. So let's talk about the shallow league guys, Jamey. I think that'd be headlined by Rachaad White. But who are some of the shallow league guys that we need to know about?
Matthew Stafford, a quarterback. If you want to avoid the mess of what everybody has been, that the guys we talked about of Tua without Tyreek and maybe Mariota plays and Dart without Neighbors and all those guys, Stafford is playing very well right now. 375 and 3 touchdowns in his last game. San Francisco's beat up defensively, as we know, and beat up offensively. So the Rams may have an opportunity to hold the ball a ton, and Stafford can have the chance for a good game. None of these guys that we're talking about, by the way, are top 12 quarterbacks for me, but they're all on the cusp. Stafford being the closest to a top 12 guy. Running backs, you mentioned, it's Rachaad that position. The other two guys that I have listed in the column are more just Kareem Hunt and Brian Robinson Jr. Hunt is more at this point touchdown or bust. If he doesn't have a good week, he's going to be on the cut list next week. And Robinson should be rostered in all leagues. Think about all these guys that we're talking about. If something happens to McCaffrey, God forbid, Robinson's going to be a must-start running back. You want this guy on your team. He is a lottery ticket and a league winner if he gets any extended opportunity to play. At wide receiver, I will say this. There is a chance in 8-team leagues that Jalen Waddle was dropped. Clearly go pick him up. Juwan Jennings would be somebody still I want to roster just because if he does play Thursday and Pearsall is out, that could be a lot of targets for him. He's dealing with what I think is a rib injury. I think what we have listed is undisclosed because Kyle Shanahan said the shoulder's bothering him, his ankle's bothering him, and he took a shot to the ribs in the game. So we just basically said it's undisclosed. To me, it means everything. Like everything is bothering Juwan Jennings at this point. But Khalil Shakir, 12.4 PPR points or more in 3 or 4 games. Stephon Diggs coming off his first 100-yard game for the Patriots. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, he just misses the threshold. So it's an interesting conversation of who's going to be the best Giants receiver rest of way. If Robinson, I know he's been bad the last 2 weeks, is still out there, I would go pick him up because there's still a chance for him to be heavily involved. And in the 2 games that Neighbors missed last year, you referenced the 11 targets that Slayton had. Robinson averaged 13 PPR points per game in those 2 games. He had 1 huge game, 1 mediocre game, but clearly there's a path for both of these guys to have a lot of production. So make sure Robinson is rostered as well. And then at tight end, there's a lot of guys that you might be able to find on waivers in 10-team leagues and even some 12-team leagues. Dalton Kincaid is still out there. Dallas Goedert is still out there. Kyle Pitts is still out there. And Juwan Johnson is out there. So Kincaid's 83% rostered. Johnson's 80% rostered. Goddard is 75% rostered. And if I'm picking up a tight end, just had an 18 PPR point per game. 18 PPR game performance. And Darnell Mooney is dealing with an injury, which we know is in great favor for Kyle Pitts' fantasy value moving forward.
Yeah, you cut out just a little bit there on your Pitts discussion, but this is not someone you should be dropping going into his bye week, right?
No.
We might have said differently if he had a bad game, though, in week 4. He just didn't.
True, but I mean, that's the tight end position, right? He's got a role. So, Dave, I don't think I have it in me to do the voice, but none of those guys are available. None of those guys are available.
Oh, I'm not doing it. Not doing it.
I can't. I don't have it today. I think I need to find a new voice.
All right,
like
Jamey, can you do it?
My league, these guys are all taken.
Jamey's impersonations are always spot on. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We already talked about Mariota at 80% at quarterback. The next best guys are kind of gross. It's Bryce Young, Sam Darnold. They're available in 2/3 of leagues. Carson Wentz against Cleveland. I'm not a fan of that. 71% available. You're in trouble if you're in a deep league and you need a quarterback.
Just before you go on, just for anybody in 2 QB leagues, go pick up Cooper Rush because he's going to potentially
99%.
start. So you are just desperate. You need somebody. And Dylan Gabriel should now be rostered if you're just looking ahead because there is definitely a scenario of Joe Flacco getting benched.
Help me out here. You've got to start one of those guys in week 5. It's Spencer Rattler. It's Cooper Rush. It's Dylan Gabriel. Who you taking?
The guy playing the Giants.
And
but there's
Rattler's
also
out
Mac
in 90%
Jones.
of leagues.
There's also Mac Jones potentially. Now we don't know that though, but it's a Thursday game and he's 14% rostered.
He's also dealing with a sprained PCL with no Ricky Pearsall and potentially no Juwan Jennings and no George Kittle. Like I'll take Rattler.
You can make the case that Rattler is better than Mac Jones.
Yeah. Okay. Rattler it is.
Don't have a lot of high expectations for any of those quarterbacks, by the way. And by the way, pipe down. You can't even do the voice this week, Adam.
Hey, running back.
There it is. Okay, now you can speak up. Sean Tucker, 97% available. We've already talked a long time about him. Other running backs who I'm sure we'll talk about at some point on this show. Justice Hill at 77%. Chris Rodriguez at 76%. You might have to wait a long time for Brashard Smith, but he did see a little bit more work than normal for the Chiefs. He's available in 92% of leagues. Those are the running backs that are out there. Slayton's available in 97% of leagues. You know the deal with him. You know the deal with Malik Washington. He's at 97%. We've been talking about Jalen Coker forever. He's at 87%. What about Jalen Tolbert for the Cowboys, who's available at 94% for however long that CeeDee Lamb's out? At least it's somebody who can pick up some work if you're really desperate as a bye week replacement at wide receiver. And then one other name, 2 other names I have to bring up. These are rookie receivers. Torrey Horton with the Seahawks, 75% available. Isaiah Bond with the Browns, 97% available. Cedric Tillman's banged up. I think he's going to miss some time. Bond actually looked pretty good last week for Cleveland. I just don't love that quarterback situation. And while we're talking about receivers in Dallas, I have to mention Kevontae Turpin, 92% available. That's a lot of names at wide receiver, but at tight end, I'll keep it short. It's the same two names we talked about already. Waller, 86%. Mason Taylor, 90%. He already has a 71% route rate each of his first 4 games. So he's been involved in what the Jets have been doing offensively. Now he's getting the targets. He's had at least 6 each of his past 2 games, and he had double-digit PPR points in his first game where Justin Fields was actually throwing to him.
Did you mention the 49ers wide receivers? And who do you prefer?
I don't know if I feel real good about starting them, and they're very short-term to begin with.
We don't know. That's the thing. We don't know. I mean, Pearsall said he felt instability in his knee, and who knows what that can mean for him moving forward.
Yeah,
I would look at Robinson over Kendrick Bourne after Bourne had the bad drop. Robinson first game action of the season, and it's a revenge game taking on his former team. So there might be a few opportunities there. Look, they're potentially chasing points in this game if they're down so many guys, and their defense did not look as good as expected. Clearly makes some sense without Nick Bosa there.
Mm-hmm.
So I would expect the Rams offense, which is clicking right now, to score some points, and they're chasing. So the bigger concern for me is that you have a quarterback with a toe injury that's not 100%. You have a backup quarterback with a knee injury that's not 100%. And
Yes.
so do you want to trust these guys? But we are talking about deeper leagues. So most of the guys Dave mentioned should be ahead of any 49ers receiver. But if you are desperate, I would look Robinson overboard.
That's got to be the deepest deep league in the history of deep leagues if you're going after those guys. Robinson probably did have a ramp-up game, 32% route rate last week.
This is a weird comment from the chat. I listened to the show when I was sleeping, and in my dream, all 4 of you showed up to my house in my dream. Very strange. All right. Well, here we are in reality. A quick trivia question. There are 2 divisions right now that do not have a sub 500 team. Can you name them?
2 divisions that have a sub 500 team.
The worst team in the division is 2-2.
I think
NFC
the
West?
NFC North is one of those teams.
And the NFC West, good job. You guys nailed it. All right. Let's talk about last night's games. Unfortunately, it will be an abbreviated take on last night's games because this show has been a little long because of all the waiver wire stuff, and that's why
So
we're
you're
here.
saying I'm not going to be able to get into my kicker diatribe.
I already went on a rant about special teams yesterday, so I think we're covered for the week. Can you trust any Bengals? Obviously, they were facing Detroit and Minnesota the last 2 weeks, but they're unwatchable right now. Are they unplayable against Detroit going forward?
I'm going to go back to Jamar Chase against the Lions. Chase Brown, just based on all the teams that are off, is a low-end number 2 running back and did look better last night. So 4 yards per carry and a little bit more involved in the passing game. So it got you 10 PPR points, which wasn't as bad as he has been. Look, Detroit's secondary is a mess right now. And I hope that Jake Browning can hold up at home and maybe hit these guys. And you saw now, you want to talk about squeaky wheel, Jamar Chase, not happy with his coach. So he's still a number 2 fantasy receiver. T. Higgins, despite all the teams that are off, is just a number 3 receiver at best. Like I'm going to continue to say this until we start to get consistent production. Like he's just going to be one of these guys, like you feel forced to start until you just get better options. And it's not going to go well.
Joey, right in the chat. Susanna Hoffs is the only Bengal I trust. That's very good. Okay. And for the Broncos, hey, RJ Harvey, what was it? What? He got 18 touches, 98 total yards. He had a receiving touchdown. That was great. I have a decent amount of Harvey. I'm not ready to start him next week, but that was encouraging. They're at Philadelphia. Well, this week, I guess I should say. But that, you know what? We'll have time to talk about that. But that was encouraging to see.
I think I read somewhere, I don't know if it was a beat writer speculating this or Sean Payton saying this. I'll go back and look, that they kind of want Dobbins now to become a little bit more of a closer.
Oh.
And maybe get Harvey going a little bit early in the game.
Dobbins
Harvey played almost the same amount of snaps as Dobbins, and he had more third down snaps than both Dobbins and Bidet, and all 4 of the Broncos snaps inside the 10. So there's a metamorphosis happening in that backfield in Denver. Be happy that you held on to RJ Harvey.
But that doesn't mean Dobbins is losing any role. He's the first 100-yard rusher. He's the first 100-yard rusher in the Sean Payton era. So I don't know. They were saying that on the broadcast. He had a really good game. If you were going to pick up a
He had
Broncos,
the last 100-yard rushing game for the Broncos.
it wasn't Javante.
What did you say?
It wasn't Javante.
It was not Javante.
Ruben Drones.
No. Who?
Latavius Murray.
Oh,
Tay-Train.
Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims. Who do you prefer if you were picking someone up off the waiver wire?
Franklin.
Mims for the short term, just because when he gets hot, he can get really hot. And I think he was banged up after last week's game, dealing with something coming into the game. Clearly looked like he was 100%. Manufactured targets for him. So I think Franklin better long term. Short term, though, I'll take Mims.
Miami 27, Jets 21. And, you know, it's pretty damn good day for fantasy on the Jets side. I mean, Breece Hall had the 5 catches. Garrett Wilson with the late touchdown. Justin Fields scored 29 fantasy points. Tua scored 19 points. It was a good fantasy day. Waddle was disappointing though, and they had a lead and they weren't really throwing much. Tua threw 25 passes. Usually the Dolphins are going to be trailing. What do you think about Jalen Waddle rest of season?
Number 2
chance to be a top 20 wide receiver.
Yeah, number 2 receiver. You just got to worry about him missing time with injuries because that seems to happen to him every year. But doors wide open for him to be the top target getter moving forward.
Would you rather have Waddle rest of season or Tedero McMillan?
McMillan.
I'm sorry, say the name again.
Waddle or McMillan?
Waddle.
Ooh.
All right, drop-o-meter. TJ Hawkinson.
4.
Yeah, 4 is fine.
Would you drop Hawkinson for Waller? Taylor?
Yes. So the only I'm going to change my answer. The number is 8 because it's the Browns and then a bye. So you got to be in a sort of desperation mode to play him this week and can't get somebody off waivers.
Okay. Drop-o-meter 0 to 10 on Cooper Kupp.
11.
So I had him as a drop yesterday, and then your theory sort of stuck in my head about if they throw a lot against the Bucs, he's going to have a bigger role. So I'm going to wait one more week.
Jerry Jeudy.
0 now.
Right, because Tillman got hurt, and there's a chance that he could end up seeing a rebound in targets. I don't want to start Jerry Jeudy, and so I guess I'll say a 1 because if you've got Jeudy as your 6th wide receiver or something like that, you probably don't need him, and you could use that roster spot for somebody else.
Yeah, unfortunately, when Tillman went out, it just seemed like Isaiah Bond just kind of got Tillman's targets.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones.
0.
Keon, I'm not saying it because I think people might be asking. He's had 2 bad fantasy games in a row. Keon Coleman.
4.
4 or 5, somewhere in that range. He's
about
almost the same. He's in the same boat as Jeudy, except you might like spike cut him. You might spike cut both those guys.
Trey Tucker, last week's darling, 74% rostered.
8.
2.
Oh, 8, 2. DJ Moore.
3.
2.
Darnell Mooney.
5.
3.
Really? I'm not so patient with him necessarily. I mean, he did have 11 targets 2 weeks ago, but he hasn't done anything so far.
Same boat as Coleman and Jeudy. The difference between Coleman and Jeudy, obviously, is that Jeudy we think is going to get targets. That's why he's less droppable than Coleman.
All right.
I don't think if you drop Darnell Mooney in a 12-team league that everyone is rushing to get him on his bye. So you can probably drop him and get him back. He is not a must-hold by any stretch.
Drop Mooney and add Loveland on Saturday.
I would drop Mooney and add Slayton.
Yeah, I guess. Again, if you don't need Mooney, then I could see this as a reasonable move.
Yeah.
Not ready to say that he's toast for the year, though.
Okay, waiver wire. You're going to see if Matthew Stafford's available. The 49ers have been good against every quarterback not named Spencer Rattler that they've faced. But Stafford is as Jamey said, he's playing great. Tua is Jamey's number 1. Mariota, it would be 2, but he may not play. Mariota has scored 20 or more fantasy points in each of the 2 games this year and the 2 games last year that he played. So he's 4 for 4 to get to 20 and 6 point per pass in touchdown leagues. Jackson Dart is 3rd against the Saints, who have allowed multiple touchdown passes and 20.7 or more fantasy points to every quarterback they have faced. And then you've got Sam Darnold against the Buccaneers. He is tied with Lamar Jackson for the NFL lead in yards per attempt. Not a lot of attempts, though. And then, Bryce Young, we just wish that Bryce Young were playing a little bit better, but the Dolphins are so bad against quarterbacks. Every quarterback that the Dolphins have faced has scored 29 or more fantasy points. And then he gets the Cowboys, who are even worse than the Dolphins. Wait a second. Yes, that is right. Every one of them has scored 29 or more fantasy points, and I don't think any of them have thrown 30 passes yet against the Dolphins. It's incredible. Carson Wentz, he obviously struggled, but he still scored 25.2 fantasy points at Pittsburgh or in Ireland. But he gets Cleveland this week. That won't be easy. Then there's Michael Penix, who's on a bye but had a good game. There's Mac Jones. There's Cooper Rush, Dylan Gabriel, Spencer Rattler we mentioned. I'm not going to get so into these guys, make the decisions based on your need. But the top 5 are Tua, Mariota, Darnold, and Bryce Young. Before we move to running back, Dave, do you have any strong disagreements on Tua, Mariota, Darnold, Young?
Not strong. The only one being that if we knew that Jane Daniels wasn't going to play, Mariota would be at the top of the list, but I think we agree on that. That's it.
Okay. At running back, you can drop Geno Smith, Trevor Lawrence, and Aaron Rodgers. At running back, we're going to look for Rachaad White. Ollie Gordon still might have that goal line role. Kareem Hunt, goal line role and passing downs role.
This is in shallow leagues, right?
Yeah. And Brian Robinson Jr. Those are the shallow league guys. Now, for the guys who are more widely available, we spent the whole show on it, but Woody Marks, Sean Tucker would be second. I know you're not seeing him on this list, but this was a recent addition if you're watching. So Woody Marks, Sean Tucker, Kenneth Gainwell. You got Justice Hill, but who's the other guy that we talked about?
Kendre Miller, Tyjae Spears.
Is it the Arizona situation? The Arizona situation is another one to watch. But Marks, Gainwell, we haven't really talked about Justice Hill or Chris Rodriguez. Jamey, what do you want to say about those guys?
I think we're going to see a lot of negative game scripts for the Ravens coming up based on their defense. And depending on how long Lamar Jackson's out, could be the next 2 weeks because their bye, as you alluded to, is in week 7. So week 5 and week 6, Lamar Jackson may not play. Justice Hill now has, I believe it's 8 or 9 catches in his last 2 games. And we know that when the Ravens are trailing, it was the same thing with the Titans in the last year for Derrick Henry there. He just not play in a lot of those scenarios. So Justice Hill is coming off a huge game. I wouldn't necessarily make that the reason to go get him, but the way that the games could unfold for Baltimore, Hill's role could expand. Rodriguez, in my opinion, just continues to look like the best running back for Washington. Had the 48-yard run in the first quarter last week against Atlanta. He does not have any role in the passing game. I don't know what they're going to do with these 3 guys in terms of using them as pass catchers when Jane Daniels is back. But if you're just looking for someone who has the potential to take hold of a backfield without an injury, it could be Rodriguez at this point because Krosky Merritt, I don't know if it was the injury he was dealing with last week or what, but they're just not giving him the work that we were hoping to see from him when Austin Eckler was down. Dave mentioned Kendre Miller. I don't necessarily want to just chase the points from last week, but everything Dave said is right. Like, he's a lottery ticket waiting to happen if Kamara gets traded or hurt. And he is starting to get more work the last 2 weeks. So if you want to make him more of a priority than Rodriguez or Hill, I have no problem with that. And then the other guy just should be mentioned really as after Marks, Gainwell, and Tucker, or Marks, Tucker, Gainwell, would be Tyjae Spears. They opened the window for him to return to practice this week. I don't know how great the scenario is because I don't think he's the answer to all the Titans' woes, but maybe a little bit of a spark in their backfield and should be added, as we've said for the last basically 3 weeks. Like, start adding him now before it becomes too expensive and you have to spend more fab than you needed to.
Can I add one more name?
Well, I'm probably going to say it, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the guy you're going to say has had double-digit touches each of the last 2 weeks.
Rico Dowdle.
That's the name.
Yeah, so Jamey mentioned Kendre Miller's getting more of a role. Rico Dowdle is also getting more of a role. He's close to 50-50 in terms of carries with Chuba Hubbard.
Right.
So maybe that's a bit of a stretch.
I mean, they were 2 blowout games, though. Keep that in mind.
Some of them are blowout games, but I think they want to have him play a role. And so I'm just saying, if you've got Chuba Hubbard and you're going to continue to roll with him, A, downgrade expectations because he hasn't been great, and B, have him backed up just in case. If Chuba loses the role or gets hurt, Dowdle would be the one to step in. Again, I don't even have him as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He's not even in my top 8 at running back guys to add this week, but just a name to keep in mind.
No, in the first half of week 4, Chuba Hubbard had 8 carries and Rico Dowdle had 7. So it wasn't just the blowout there. We mentioned Amari DiMercato, but I think Michael Carter is also an interesting name to know. Blake Corum, Brashard Smith's getting a bigger role. Tyler Algiers, 62% rostered. Nobody ever handcuffs Josh Jacobs, but Emmanuel Wilson looked pretty good against Dallas, and Jacobs had a knee issue. It was just a cut on his knee.
Yeah,
but
Marshawn Lloyd is eligible to come off of IR.
He's got to figure it'd be Emmanuel Wilson though at this
I
point.
They like him a lot.
Too,
They
but
like
you
Wilson
never
a lot.
know.
Jaden Blue is another guy.
They're not such big fans of Marshawn Lloyd, from what I hear. They like Wilson
Because
quite a
he's
bit.
always in the trainer's room.
Yeah. Okay, you could drop Nick Chubb. You don't have to, but you could drop Nick Chubb. I'm going to drop Tyrone Tracy for Woody. I don't think Woody Marks is available. I think I already did that, but I would drop Tyrone Tracy for some of the guys that we've talked about. I just don't know how good he's going to be when he comes back. Kyle, but I wouldn't do it for like Rico Dowdle. I would do it for a Bucks guy or Kenneth Gainwell or something like that. Kyle Mononga is droppable. Caleb Johnson's droppable. The shallow league wide receivers are Jawan Jennings. If he can play this week, he might have a good role. And Khalil Shakir going up against New England. Shakir not getting a lot of targets, no more than 5 in 3 straight games, but he's got a touchdown in 2 straight games. One of them was kind of a miracle. Stephon Diggs looked pretty good. That's what I was watching this morning, and he's 76% rostered in CBS leagues. So he'd be one that I'd be looking at, and certainly I think we all would, because his route participation rate is going up. It was 82%. It was 90% in the first 3 quarters of the game, and he hadn't been over 70% route participation rate all year. So they ramped up the work for Diggs. Then you got Wan'Dale Robinson as well. And then the guys to add at wide receiver, Rondale's just 66% rostered, so he's part of this discussion. You guys, which Giants wide receiver would you prioritize, Slayton or Wan'Dale?
Slayton slightly.
I'll take Wan'Dale slightly if it's full PPR.
All right, so Wan'Dale, Slayton, you got Romeo Dobbs, Jalen Coker, Alec Iomanner. You got Marvin Mims on this list, Malik Washington, Isaiah Bond. Luke McCaffrey's had a touchdown in 2 straight games with McLaurin out, but he's only had 3 targets in each of those games. You could look at DeMarcus Robinson, or Kendrick Bourne, who might have a role this week. I wanted to mention Rashid Shaheed. The Giants are 31st against wide receivers. I don't understand why, really, but they are seeing the most wide receiver targets per game, the Giants, even though they're so bad against the run. But they've given up big games mostly to good wide receivers. But does anybody like Shaheed this week? Would you go make a claim for him?
He's in that mix after Slayton and Dobbs for sure. I mean, it's a great opportunity, like you said, matchups there for him, but the production's not going to be consistent based on what we've seen so far. So it's more of just, again, listen, we're down the four teams on a bye. We just lost in the same weekend 2 top 15 receivers in Malik Neighbors and Tyreek Hill. We don't know when CD Lamb's coming back. We don't know when Terry McLaurin's coming back. Like, this is a bad position right now to try and find, players with upside. And I still think Shaheed has upside.
He does. How do you feel about 8.2 PPR points?
Yeah, every week he's been that or better.
That's his floor. And then week 2, he had 15.2 because he scored a touchdown. I wish he'd get a little bit more in the target department. Week 1, he had 9. That was awesome.
Which department?
5, 6, 5 after that.
You said the target department. We talking like home and garden, electronics?
Oh,
okay.
I'm more of a frozen dessert freezer aisle type of
gotcha.
guy.
Tight end, a lot of those shallow league tight ends that Jamey mentioned. Who's your favorite? Kincaid, Juwan Johnson, Dallas Goedert, or Kyle Pitts?
It's a great question. I would probably go with Juwan Johnson just because of what he did the first 3 games of the season. Kincaid is a close second at this point. Pitts would be there, but the fact that he's on a bye right now, I would just put him a little bit lower on the list. But Johnson, Kincaid are the top 2.
I would take Kincaid. Just imagine a world where he starts seeing more targets from week to week.
So that world's on a different team or a different coordinator or a different quarterback. Like what world are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still living in the preseason Bills world, I guess.
So I mentioned Kincaid, Juwan Johnson, Dallas Goedert, and Kyle Pitts. Would you take all of them over Darren Waller? How would you rank Darren Waller with that group?
Waller's behind them, but very close to them now. Look, I don't want to get excited about one game against the Jets. I know there's a big opportunity here because Tyreek Hill is out, and this is a guy that couldn't get healthy after not playing football for, a year plus. So he struggled with injuries last time we saw him, last 2 times we saw him.
Mhm.
And yes, the runway is clear. The Jonnu Smith role is open. The opportunity is fantastic, but I still think these other guys have established themselves and are in pretty good spots as well. So he's behind them, but not far behind.
Okay. And then after Darren Waller, it's Brent.
I'm not dropping Juwan Johnson off a bad game to pick up Darren Waller.
And I wouldn't want to have Waller as my only tight end unless it's a shallow league where, I mean, if it's a shallow league where a lot of tight ends are on the bench, you're probably going to go and pick up one of those other tight ends anyway and leave Waller there.
Brenton Strange is kind of like the Rashid Shaheed of tight ends. He's given you, but even better. He's 9.9 or more. Yeah. Well, he has had one bad game, though. That's the difference. But 9.9 or more fantasy points in 3 of 4 games for Strange. Mason Taylor is really piquing my interest. He's a pretty good prospect and, bigger role. I said it for the 5th time now. 13 targets in his last 2 games for Mason Taylor. Gets Dallas this week. They're horrible. Jamey likes, I wouldn't say likes, but Jamey mentions Tommy Tremble, who had 8 targets last week, and now he faces the Dolphins, who going into last night were giving up the 2nd most fantasy points to tight ends, and then they gave up a big game to Mason Taylor. Dalton Schultz is...
So I think Dalton Schultz is the Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Last 2 weeks, exactly 6 targets, exactly 5 receptions, exactly under 40 yards.
Anywhere between 8 and 9 PPR points.
Theo Johnson, we think, might be more involved now that Neighbors is out. And Jake Tongas could be more involved now that everyone is injured. So that's a guy who's 6% rostered. Theo Johnson, 5% rostered. How do you feel about Harold Fannin Jr. compared to this group?
So I have them as dropped, both Browns tight ends, just because it's been pretty miserable since week 1. Miserable all season for Njoku, miserable since week 1 for Fannin. There is now a path for them because of Tillman's absence, but as I think we've discussed, Isaiah Bond kind of stepped in and took those opportunities. I just don't think it's going to be consistent enough from them. And what we were hoping for just hasn't materialized, of Joe Flacco throwing the ball 40 plus times on a consistent basis, because their defense is so good, because now their run game is so good. It's just not happening for Flacco and the pass catcher. So you can hold if you want to. I just think that there's, yes, the tight end position feels gross. There's also, like we just said, there's guys that have a chance to maybe step up and play at a high level, either for the upcoming week or for the next several weeks. So for me, I'm moving on.
Yeah, I'm not so stressed about tight end this week because I feel like there are, a number of guys with some good players on bye. But another guy we haven't talked about is Chigo Okonkwo, who's coming off a bad game, but the 2 games before that, he was solid. And the Cardinals are really bad against tight ends. So Okonkwo could be okay this week, And then as kind of a long-term look, just keep an eye on Elijah Arroyo and Oronde Gadsden. Just like Mason Taylor, they are seeing their roles increase. Oh, actually, Taylor's had the role. He's just getting the targets. Gadsden and Arroyo are seeing the route participation go up.
You really had an opportunity for a good joke there. You could have said, Chig could be okay, Onkwo.
That's pretty good. Okay, DST's Cardinals are number 1 on Jamey's list and number 1 overall for Jamey this week. The Rams are 49% rostered. They get the Niners, who are super beat up. The Chiefs are at the Jaguars. The Jaguars actually have not been a bad matchup, have not been a good matchup for DSTs. They don't get stacked, I think.
And Trayvon Walker's banged up.
Cleveland is facing Minnesota with an injured offensive line, and the Giants are at New Orleans. And then kicker, Chad Ryland, Josh Carty, Jason Myers. Okay. I knew this was going to be a long one, but this was an important show. There's a lot of moving parts here, so stay tuned. If we get big news on Bucky Irving, if there's any extended absence or anything like that, we'll do a bonus pod, even if it's during Yankees Red Sox. So go Yankees. Go to your waiver wire. We'll talk to you at 1 p.m. Eastern. See you later, everybody.